Good afternoon, and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. I'm Barbara Cochran with my current co-host,
Dr. Thomas Polucki.
On your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. And also joining us today is another, oh my goodness, co-host or host, Don Gately, Dr. Jean Dorio, and Myles McNamara is coming in later. So we have the whole crew here, and we've all been operating at one time or another for 20 years. This is the 20th anniversary of the Senior Hour. Isn't that amazing?
Yay!
And there was much rejoicing. All right, by the way, we have Kevin in the studio from the Senior Center.
Yes,
we don't want to ignore her.
Yay, Kevin. Yay, Kevin. Yay, Senior Center.
Okay, so Jean, you are Dr. Dorio. Jean, you are the you and Barbara took the show over from Don back in the very early days. So maybe you can ask Don some questions about how that all started.
Yeah, Don. Don, we would not be here in Santa Clarita on the air for 20 years if it were not for you. So what made you talk to the Goldmans and get this whole thing started?
Well, you know, I had worked all my life in advertising and or radio, and I had never done anything on air. And I thought, gee, this is a brand new station, and maybe there's a chance that I could do a little bit of on air stuff, which we did, and I really enjoyed.
And that was over in Canyon Country. That's when I first met you, Don.
A long time ago.
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah, we had the radio station was in Canyon Country.
Yes.
That is correct. And we used to go into that small little studio and broadcast the show from there. So do you remember how I got on the show, Don?
No, I just think they told me that they wanted to have a co-host, and I said I didn't like the idea. And they said, yeah, but we have this Dr. Dorio. And so I said, well, I guess I don't have much choice. But it worked out very, very well, obviously.
And I don't know if you recall, but you bribed me to be on the show. You bribed me by you taking me out to Marie Callender's for lunch. And then at that point, because I had called Jeri Goldman, and said, maybe they should talk about this and that and this and that. You guys know how I am. And he said, well, let's get you a hold of Don Gately. And so, Don, you we touched bases, and you took me out to lunch. And then I was just there to give suggestions. And that's when you popped the question. I thought you might pull out a ring the next thing, but you popped the question and you said, would you like to be co-host, which is a shock to me because I'd never done anything like this. But, it's been a learning curve for all of us on the show, and it's actually been a lot of fun. But I got involved because, Don, you had asked me, you had done the show twice on your own, and then from that point on, I kind of blubbered my way through the next 18 years.
Hey, buddy.
20.
The other thing.
Well, you have a better memory than I do. I don't remember taking you to lunch or anything like that, but if you said that's what I did, I guess I did.
Well, Don, I was on the show as a guest over 20 years ago, and talking about the Zonta Club, the women's organization I belong to, and talking about fundraising. And after the show was over, Jeri came up to me and she said, would you be interested in being a host or a co-host for a show? And I said, what? She said, well, yes. She said, you have a very, very good enunciation, you have a clear voice, and you would be good on it. And I said, well, okay. And that's how I got started.
Yeah, and by then, Don, you had left the show, and I was, faking my way through the next several months, and then Jerry said, "Hey, I have a potential co-host," and Barbara had been a guest on our show, and so I knew who she was. But since then, she's come on as co-host, and developed a great friendship from that, and realized what in terms of Barbara, all the things that she has done for the community, especially she and Russ at the Senior Center. Why don't you kind of explain, some of our listeners, I think everybody knows, but I think it's, for those who don't know, I think it's might be an idea just to explain to the listeners what you and Russ did in terms of developing helping the senior population in Santa Clarita.
Well, yes, I will. And Russ was an elementary school principal, and he was always walking into the classrooms and talking with the kids and what have you. And he heard from many of the kids that my mom and my grandma don't have any place to go. There's nothing for them to do here. And so we happen to be involved with the Community Health Council that has since vanished. But he was in touch with a lot of doctors up here, and we got doctors involved up here. And then he contacted Antonovich's office and got that started, talking about getting a senior center up here. And that's what happened. The county was sponsoring the senior center over on Market Street. And that's where it all began.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
Speaking of the senior center, Kevin hasn't gotten a word in so far this show. Welcome to the show, Kevin. You are our regular for this hour, but this is kind of special.
This is wonderful just to listen to how this show began.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be pointed out very quickly now what a gift that this show is to the community. For 20 years, you all have been doing this and co-hosting and hosting because why did you do this?
For seniors.
For seniors, to share that vital information.
And what do you feel the impact of the Senior Hour has had in this community and at the Senior Center?
I have so many people come to me, especially after I do the show, that said, "Oh, I listened today," because they want to gather that information. They want to know what's out there. They want to know resources. And this is an incredibly great venue and avenue to share that with the community, and the different folks you bring on here to change it up every week after week is just wonderful.
Well, we have an extremely large senior population in Santa Clarita. We really do. I mean, look at Friendly Valley. Mm-hmm. Good heavens, that place has just skyrocketed. There are so many people over there now, seniors.
And that population, it continues to grow. And we knew that explosion of seniors in our country was going to continue to go. And really, people are living longer. They're living stronger, too. So that the elder age group of 60 to maybe 80 has really expanded to much higher than that. So all of a sudden, it's game on for a 40-year group of people.
Yeah.
And
to get that information.
What's going to happen is they're going to be living longer.
Yes.
Close to 100 is going to be the normal.
And as those needs change, the variety of topics that come here to keep everybody informed in the great Santa Clarita is just so important. KHTS should take some props for making this happen every single week for these seniors. It's just a gift.
That's right. Now, how do you see our senior center in the next 20 years?
Oh, we've been thinking about that so hard, and we're trying to guess. We envision, a hub of supports and services, but we're also trying to do what we call a senior center without walls and bring everything we do out into the community, especially to those who are homebound, and making sure every single resource we have is right at your fingertips in your home. So I hope we continue to go in that, whether it's through YouTube or other types of media, to get that information right there in front of their televisions to say, oh, I can do that, or I feel part of a community.
And the other thing that's very important, which I'm involved in over there, is calling the homebound seniors. I have a list of 21 homebound seniors, and they're always so glad to hear my voice. Hi, how are you? What did you do?
And that's a perfect example of how do we bring that into the future.
Oh.
And then, the archaic phone call still works.
Oh,
But how do we
boy,
better
does it.
communicate with our seniors in the future is one of our challenges.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When this show started, believe this or not, there was not a Google. There was not an iPhone. There was not a Skype. There was not a Zoom. There was not a YouTube or even a Facebook. This is how long this show has, evolved, and the impact of technology. And Kevin, what you were just saying, it's now you don't have to be there in order to have the experience with all this amazing technology. And the Senior Hour on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220 Hometown Station has been evolving all the time, and it will continue, hopefully staying relevant and important to the growing senior community.
And when
I think,
go ahead.
Don?
but I think that one of in the very beginning with Don Gately, I remember we had Buck McKeon on the show. Do you remember that, Don?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a point of asking him questions. Some of them were political, but most of them were around senior life and older adults. And I think from that, Don, that launched us into the Senior Hour point of advocacy, and in conjunction with the Senior Center, because we not only started to advocate, but we also started to bring the seniors together. And they went out and they protested the closure of the transitional care unit. They carried signs around for 5 months. They made sure that the Senior Center had home delivered meals or meals on wheels. And all of these have evolved and continued into the future of what we are still doing now. And to Kevin, the new Senior Center. I mean, all of this advocacy happened because the Senior Hour and the Senior Center worked together with many people in the community and the city council, the city of Santa Clarita, to make sure that seniors were recognized. So it allowed us to be advocates. From what Don started to do as it evolved over the years, it's made a big difference, not just for the past, but for the future.
That's very true. And the another CEO of the Senior Center was Brad Behrens, and he was very active, very, very active as far as the senior.
And I just want to share my thanks to the Goldmans and KHTS, because they brought us on, and they allowed the Senior Center to have a spot at your table once a month.
Yeah,
and we're very grateful. That doesn't always happen in all the communities that I've been in.
Absolutely.
So for them to reach out and say, we want that Senior Center perspective, and it's one perspective of many, it really helps us get our word out to share what we're doing, and it's a ripple effect, and it's all good for the community, and it's all good for this great city we live in.
I want to just amplify I want to just amplify the fact that the Goldmans made a huge difference in keeping the show on the air, because there were times where we couldn't get sponsors and we had to go out and knock on doors, and we were able to find them through their help. So it was in jeopardy, but the Goldmans never let go of it. And I would say hand in hand with the Senior Center and the radio show, the Goldmans played a huge role in making sure that, we're up on top for 20 years now.
Yeah, and regardless of the advances in technology, with all the streaming services out there and satellite radio and all of that, terrestrial radio is the one solid connectivity that you can count on in Santa Clarita. I mean, we can't even get broadcast TV in this valley. We have to subscribe to a service. But so many times when there's a local emergency or anything, KHTS is the home of that connection of the community. And again, thank you to Jeri Serrati-Goldman and Carl Goldman for being that source of that foundation for the past 20 plus years.
Don.
I'm here.
Yes, you're still there. That's good.
I'm listening.
Do you listen? Are you able to listen to the show where you live?
No, not really. I'm living now out in Simi Valley, and we don't get that good reception way out here.
Well, can you get it through? Aren't we on YouTube?
We are on YouTube. We're also on Facebook, which is
Facebook.
a great way to not just hear but see the show. Sometimes it's not that exciting to watch a bunch of people sitting around talking into mics, but you can listen to it because a lot of people just listen and go about their business, and that's one way for people outside of the broadcast area to get the information, the show every week.
And through the website, you can go back and listen to a previous show.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I'm 90 years old now, and I don't hear very well. That's another problem. So I really don't get to listen like I should, but I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Hey, I'm catching up to you in age. My next birthday is 88.
Oh, you're getting there.
Pretty,
Yes, I
pretty
am.
good.
Well, you're sounding good, Don. You really are. And it's been
Well, I've got Parkinson's disease amongst other things, so I'm not great, but I'm still here.
You're still there.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, my husband had Parkinson's, and it was not a good thing, and it affected his mind and his body and the whole thing. But well, hang in there and stay with us, okay? Because we're going to have another.
20th anniversary.
No, we'll have a 25th.
Okay.
So
You're not counting that far ahead, are you?
Oh, why
No,
not?
I don't know about that.
Hey,
I'm already
nothing
90. I don't know,
ventured,
5
nothing
more years from now, that's a long way.
There you
Oh,
go,
yeah.
Don. They say that the second thing to go as we get older is the memory, and I can't remember what the first one is. But do you have any memorable things about when you hosted the show?
No, not really. You mentioned the fact that Buck McKeon was on, and I hadn't even remembered that, but that was kind of a highlight when I was there. And I pulled out pretty early on in the show because I had some different ideas about what I wanted to do with it. As it turned out, you guys were right, and I was not right, but that's a whole other story.
A whole nother story,
Well-
and I bet you have lots to tell. Well, we need to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, and all you other hosts and co-hosts on your hometown station, 98.1
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yes, 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, and we also have previous hosts, Don Gately, and Dr. Jean Dorio, and Myles McNamara. Whoa, what a group.
I hear there's an anniversary gig going on today.
Yes, 20th anniversary. Isn't that amazing? But
Yep.
we're going to go 20 more, aren't we, guys?
Yeah, Myles,
Yes,
it's
yes.
actually news to me that you were a host of this show. I mean, I love when you come in because I don't have to work. but there's a reason. I mean, you hosted this show for how long? What was that all about?
Many moons ago. I mean, my first time
Yep.
when I first came, open Comfort Keepers over 22 plus years ago, Don was the host for my first appearance on the
Yes.
Senior Hour. That's why, Don, I know it's been a while. That's why I asked you if you recalled who I was, because that was forever ago. But when I first opened Comfort Keepers, of course, started advertising on KHTS, was invited to be on the...
I think if I met you in the street, I wouldn't recognize you. It's too long ago.
It's been a while, yeah. And so they asked if I'd be on the show. Don was the host, and I can't remember because I was listening coming in that Don said he only did the first two without Gene. So, Gene, you may have been a co-host on my first appearance as well. I don't recall.
You definitely, I was definitely the co-host when you came on because I remember the impact that you had. And I said, this guy is great. Maybe he should be the co-host and take my place.
Well, no,
Gene, without
three of
without
us.
Gene Dorio, you guys would never have had what you have now.
that's right.
I mean, he's been remarkable.
That's right. And so after, years of appearances, then I was asked to become one of the three amigos.
Yes.
So I don't know, maybe the Three Stooges. I don't know. But so Gene, Barbara, and I co-hosted the show for many, many moons. And then I stepped away to start my own show, Aging with Power, for a while. I didn't bring that back after the COVID stuff. I may or may not do that. But yeah, so the only reason I stepped away was for Aging with Power. But then, of course, I'm a monthly guest. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, well, thank you for your continued sponsorship. And, like I said, you make the show easy. So,
I want to hear some of the old war stories, though.
yeah. So I got to ask. All right. So, Gene, Don, what have been some of the challenges and the evolution of the show from your perspectives?
Well, my original idea was to do more of a romantic kind of a thing, where did you and your husband meet and all that kind of thing. But we kind of didn't stay in that direction too long. But that was what I first wanted to do.
Yeah, well, I think there's a place for some more interactive. I mean, we do have Facebook, so if nothing else, we can, have real-time feedback from listeners and watchers on the Facebook show. I think that's actually a pretty great idea.
Yeah, but that was long ago, and we didn't have those things then. So, anyway, turned out very well for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I thought.
And it's so good to hear your voice, Don. It really is. I just wish you could have made it.
I'm turned 90 about 2 weeks ago, so.
Whoa.
And I do have Parkinson's, and I've also got I just failed the COVID test, so I got that too. So I got problems, but I'm doing what I can,
Yeah, but you'll survive. You're a survivor. I mean, look, 90 years.
90, yeah.
You got a few more to go, kiddo.
Maybe, who knows?
Yes, absolutely.
How about you, Gene? Were there issues? How did you help the show evolve? Because I know you've been on top of not only community issues, but senior issues for a long time.
I think the show evolved, but I think it allowed me to evolve as a physician, as an advocate for the older adults and seniors in our community. One of the challenges I recall was when we actually had a off-campus, off-radio station program at our senior center in Newhall. And Barbara, you were the co-host with me at that time, and I recall we had George Pedersen as our guest. And of course, today we not celebrate, but we honor Mother Nature and her earthquake of 30 years ago that greatly damaged our community. And George Pedersen was the mayor at that time. And he, as all of us know, Bob Keller and all of us, city council, know that George and the city council helped us to survive out here, not only bringing water, but also aid to us getting the freeways fixed. It was a terrible thing. But we did a radio show from the senior center, and that was, Barbara, remember, that was a challenge.
Yes,
George was great.
Well, we had so many seniors in there who raised their arms and wanted to speak and created a ruckus, I tell you. But we survived it.
Almost a riot.
I wasn't aware that the senior hour broadcast from the senior center for a while. Was that a temporary thing or what?
No, it was just on a couple of occasions.
Okay.
Just 2 shows, yeah. I think we kind of gave up, Myles, on that, but that was truly one of our big challenges. But we had great guests to be able to be on the show. We had Buck Early, and then George Pedersen, Bob Keller, so many others that came on our show for not romance, but political reasons. So we honor them for participating and allowing them to be advocates for us. And that allowed, I think, Barbara and I to be bigger advocates in the community by writing, speaking, working downtown on commissions, working in the state on different legislative bodies for laws that help seniors. So it helped us a lot in terms of having this show and launching us out and making sure that here in Santa Clarita, we had a big advocacy group for seniors. Not all were seniors, but many evolved from KHTS and the Senior Hour.
That's true.
Oh, Gene, I think you're too modest. You know, without you, the show would not have survived the way it has.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would have somebody, because there's so many. Don, thank you. There's so many in the community that are senior advocates. Sometimes there are many. Barb, remember we brought out in their internal spirit to help us out, to carry signs in protest, to go and speak at City Council, to go downtown to LA County to speak. So there were so many that somebody would have, if I wasn't around, Barbara wasn't around, somebody else would have risen up to help out. Myles came up. Thomas has come up. We've just had a group here, but we've had a huge group in the community that supports senior issues.
That's very true. And I wanted to get to Myles, because Comfort Keepers is not only a sponsor, but deals with many, many seniors for home care. Why don't you give us a little information about
Hey, listen,
your
since I'm the one
business?
got started with it, you guys, I should still be getting a commission from Myles.
Okay, what do you
That's
say,
right.
Myles?
Oh yeah, I'll get back to you, Don. But yeah, and before I start that, just to kind of tail off what Gene was saying. I mean, I know Santa Clarita has been named one of the most senior-friendly communities around, and I think Gene and you, Barbara, and Don, and everybody who keeps senior issues on the forefront. Now, Kevin at the Senior Center, and I think the city being so senior friendly as well. I think that the show has sort of evolved with the community to make sure that the senior issues are out front, and that our community is so senior friendly, and it always strives to be that. So kudos to you guys, and the shoulders that we all stand on. So that's greatly appreciated. But yeah, I do work with seniors, as you alluded to, Barbara. I mean, I have a home care company where Comfort Keepers goes into the homes of our seniors because they want to stay in their own home. They may choose to go to assisted living or God forbid be sent to a nursing home. But if we can keep them in their homes with a caregiver, Comfort Keeper helping with meals and taking their meds and showering and getting to their doctor's appointments. So yeah, so that's put me on the forefront of not only watching our community evolve as senior friendly, but also to help our seniors and stay involved in the senior center and advocate rather for senior issues myself.
Well, you have a very valuable business.
And of course, through the years, becoming a senior myself now, technically, I guess. But yeah, so I've evolved into my own demographic.
Join the company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Myles, the other thing that you had your show Aging with Power, but you've evolved not just the show but your business, and this is where I learned, Myles, from you. This is where I learned how important it is to have home care, and your ability to help our seniors age in place, so they don't have to go to a nursing home. They don't end up in the hospital. That has been the educational lesson that I have learned and benefited from, and my patients benefited from, because of what you have done and brought to this community. So your role, Myles, has been, for me, tremendous. For the community, even more tremendous. And I think that in the next 5 years, 25-year anniversary, or 40 years, or whatever it is, we will, I don't know if we'll all be around, but that shoulders you talked about will be there because you have provided the shoulders for us to stand on.
Well, that's true. And how, Myles, what do you see the situation in 20 years as far as seniors are concerned and care for seniors?
Well, I think it's actually slowly coming to the forefront now, because by and large, home care, non-medical home care with caregivers and personal attendants is private pay unless you have a long-term care insurance policy. But I think, which you have, but now I think it's starting to come to the forefront where there's legislation and people are putting their toe in the water, where I think home care should be covered as a health benefit, just like an annual physical or going to the doctor
Through Medicare.
Through Medicare,
Absolutely.
because because it's also very effective in preventing injury and preventing, accidents and health issues by mismanagement of medications or slip and falls and stuff. So I think it's on the precipice of actually being covered by Medicare and Medicaid. I'm hoping. I know, there's a lot of folks kind of leading the legislation to get that out there, but even in the last couple of years, you've heard senior care and home-based care really starting to be talked about for the first time. So in 20 years, I'm hoping that home care will be just a cafeteria type benefit of your health care plan that you can choose.
Well, the one thing you got to remember is the world's getting older, and there's more and more and more of us old folks around.
Yeah,
which
it's
can
a
only be
senior
good
boom.
for what you're doing.
Yeah, it's exactly
Very
right.
True.
You
Very
know,
true.
and like I said earlier, a lot of folks choose to go to assisted living because, as they sometimes are referred to, as, cruise ships on land. But, by and large, that's a choice that the senior should make. It shouldn't be made by their family, or they shouldn't be forced there if they don't want to go. If they want to stay in their own home where their memories are, where, their generations of family pictures are on the wall, what have you. So, so I think home care is going to, in the next 20 years, is going to be very, very relevant in the senior care game. It's already very relevant, but now I think even exponentially so it will be.
Sure.
It's going to be more of an active role in our lives and in the lives of medical care
Right.
and just taking care of seniors, because we're living longer.
And you have to look down the road, so create your own roadmap. I mean, a lot of us, our family caregivers, don't even realize it because it's just part of our daily lives. But if you're checking in with your parents, making sure that there's fresh food in the fridge, and getting them to their doctors, I mean, all those things, you're being a daily caregiver.
Sure.
Those are the things that Comfort Keepers does, and we always talk to our adult children and let us do those types of things so you can spend quality time with your loved ones. But a lot of folks are performing daily caregiver tasks, and they don't even realize it until there's a line that you cross when you're like, okay, now I feel it. Now I'm really daily care for my parent.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because my son and my daughter both take turns coming down and staying with
I'm
me.
gonna be
And it's-
signing off, guys, because I got my dinner waiting for me here.
Oh,
Okay, Don,
whoa.
thank you.
Good talking to
Thank
you,
you
Don.
for your contribution and starting the
Yes.
senior hour over 20 years ago.
Yes.
Well, I'm
Good
glad it worked
talking
out so
to you.
well.
Good talking
No,
to
thank you, Don.
Don. And
All
we'll
right,
talk to you
bye-bye.
in another 5 years and in between, okay?
And
You got it?
He's out. He's out. He's got dinner waiting.
He's hungry.
Enjoy your dinner.
All right, so Myles, you brought up a great point. I mean, a retirement plan should factor in, the inevitability of you're going to need some help. My CPA asked about my retirement plan. I was like, well, I'm going to kick back and watch some TV. He was like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You've got to have this stuff structured.
Yeah, it gets to your front door before you know it. I mean, Dr. Dorio sees it a lot, because he does home visits now, which is a unicorn in its own way. But as far as when folks are starting to get more and more homebound without even realizing it, and there's a lot of transitions in life that we need to forecast so that we're prepared for it. I mean, something as relevant and as taking the car keys away from a parent because they're not safe to drive anymore. I mean, as we age, we feel like, we look in the mirror and like, who's that old fart in the mirror? Because inside you still feel very, vibrant and stuff. But, your reactions are slowing. Sometimes there's cognitive issues that come into play. And so, I mean, and it's such a sense of independence. I mean, imagine right now, you guys, we all feel fine, but if someone walks up and says, we don't think you're fine, we're taking your car keys.
Yeah.
So, if you need a ride, give us a call. And it's like, that type of thing. And so the way you approach those things, you have to have that discussion before it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
What is that roadmap that you help orchestrate when it's not an issue? Because if you're making those decisions when everything's emotionally based and, out of panic mode, so to speak, that's not a good time to be making life decisions.
Yeah,
Well,
it's always best to have a plan instead of just react to an emergency.
Yeah.
It's interesting because many years ago, I got long-term care insurance, and I said to Russ at the time, why don't we get this? And, it'll be a big help. He
Well,
said,
and not to interrupt, a lot of folks don't even know what that is. So I don't have to explain what long-term care insurance is, Barbara. Some folks aren't even familiar with it.
Well, long-term care insurance is I pay 3 times a year to get long-term care insurance, and you have to have a doctor's note to kick it in, and have the insurance pays for someone to come in and take care of you. Sometimes it's over. I got it overnight to begin with because I couldn't take care of Russ during the night because he wouldn't sleep. His sleeping was mostly during the day, but he was awake at night. So I had to have someone come in at night. And I'm so thankful that I did because it paid 2/3
Of your
of
home
our
care.
home care bill.
Exactly.
And I thought, I'm so glad. And he finally told me, he said, I'm so glad you went ahead and got it.
What's important to consider that, insurance that isn't mandatory, but yet the most important, because we're all told we have it's a law that you have to have car insurance, and you may or may not have a car accident, or you may, you should have health insurance, or not health insurance, I'm sorry, mortgage insurance on your home, but long-term care on ourselves is the only thing that's 100% for sure. We may or may not get in a car accident. We may or may not have a house fire. We 100% are going to get old. So that optional insurance is the most important.
Yes.
Thanks, Myles. We'll be right back. KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, hometownstation.com.
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. And wow, what an hour an almost hour we've had. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Celebrating our 20 years on the air.
Yes.
We've had all of the hosts from Don Gately. Dr. Gene Dorio is still on air with us. Myles McNamara, Barbara Cochran, and me, the current co-host. And I'm just so grateful that we have this platform. We have this platform, KHTS, thanks to Jeri Serrati-Goldman and Carl Goldman for giving us this time to try to help the senior community. And we've heard about the impact, the challenges, and the memories of the past 20 years. So, Gene, anything you want to add in the next couple of minutes? I want to give Myles some time because he is our sponsor and a host of the show.
Well, that's okay. I let Gene speak. I'm here once a month. We only celebrate 20 years once.
But, the important part is that I believe this show was a launching point for senior advocacy. And, starting from Don Gately, moving up with all the co-hosts, but being allowed to have a voice in the community by the Goldmans made a huge difference. And that started it out where we coupled hands together with the Senior Center. And from all those at the Senior Center and the city of Santa Clarita, those who from before, George Pedersen, Bob Keller, all those who helped out and made a difference in the senior community, we coupled hands with them and became advocates and learned the value of having a voice. And while I think a lot of places around the country were stagnant, Santa Clarita was not, as Dr. Polucki said. We were always moving forward, and we still continue to do that. So I think in our next 20 years, you're going to have a lot of people standing up, raising their fists, and maybe carrying a picket sign. I don't know. But I think the fight is on, and it's been fun in the process, hasn't it? For all of us, this has not been a chore, and I certainly appreciate everything the community has done to make sure the senior voice is heard.
Well, we thank you, Gene, not just for hosting this show, but for all of your advocacy for the senior community, even on the legislative level. And that's a whole nother show that we could talk about. Unfortunately, we are out of time for this show, our 20th anniversary show of the Senior Hour on KHTS. And thank you to our flagship sponsor, Myles McNamara, is in the studio, Comfort Keepers. We appreciate you. You make this show possible. Myles, any last thoughts? We got a few seconds.
No, just happy anniversary. Let's go forward and make sure, as our seniors, 65 people turn 65, I don't know, by the thousands a day. So let's keep our senior issues out front.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a growing community. We have a senior boom happening. And Barb, thank you for you've been here. I guess technically now you've been here the longest out of all of us. So
Heavy's the head that wears the crown.
there you go.
Well, I've been in Santa Cruz or Newhall since 1968.
Mm-hmm.
And loved every minute of it. Got involved in volunteering, and just, it's a wonderful place to live. Wonderful people. I have lots of friends and family.
That's amazing. You've been listening to the 20th anniversary of this Senior Hour, KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, hometownstation.com, sponsored by Comfort Keepers and Providence Holy Cross.